This year has been a crazy one at that, not only for just people in general, but more specifically, the music industry. Artists have postponed tour dates and album release dates as well, so a handful of artists are just not dropping material. And that is the perfect time for artists that are more underground, not so relevant, or not so known. They can thrive, they can shine. Most notably, the duo known as Black Dresses got a lot of fame and attention off of their recent album, Peaceful as Hell. Unfortunately, the duo have broken up, but they still work on their own projects. An amazing album from Backwash that I reviewed on this channel. You can go check it out. Really great release. And now I'm getting to another one, but it was released way earlier this year before all of this started. Shimmers with Face Down in Meta. Again, I was unaware of this album when it dropped, and it took me a handful of months to get to it, and I only just found out about it a couple days ago, maybe about a week ago. And this is the band's debut album. They specialize in neo-psychedelic, shoegaze, noise, dream pop, indie pop stuff. This album is really all over the place with its stylistic influences, not only from genres, but from musical artists. I'm getting somewhat of a Flaming Lips vibe as well as MGMT. I'm getting like subtle hits of Neon Indian too. A little bit of Animal Collective, a little bit of Fishmans as well. This is a 58-minute album, a debut album, need I remind you, and the ending of this record is 10 minutes long. How ambitious. But in all seriousness, it is a pretty lengthy song that keeps me engaged from front to back. The song actually has like this weird post-Rockian flair to it where it just has this constantly building instrumentation until it reaches a climax towards the latter end of the track. It does bring a sense of finality and closure to the album too, which in all honesty, I did not want it to end. It was such a good record. On many of these tracks, you're getting very layered, multifaceted, and textured songs that are filled with synthesizers and guitars and drums and just so many other instruments. I believe there are also a handful of samples that are used in this album as well. There are some tracks that also incorporate a little bit of like an 8-bit tune, almost like a video game style of music. Specifically on the track COEVAL Ari, which just starts off with this almost like a loading screen kind of mindset. This song, like many of the other songs, start off pretty heavy. Like there's a lot going on at the beginning. It kind of introduces you to what the rest of the song's gonna sound like. Despite that though, there is progression within these tracks. It's not just this one long, arduous sound piece. It's very textured. Again, it's a little all over the place, but it's still very connected. And in one breath, there's a strange aura surrounding this record, but on the other, there are some smile-inducing tunes on this album. Like the 5th track on this thing, Feels HZ, featuring Goat Girl, which starts off with these very bright synth notes, and then you get sucked into this dreamy, wet shoegaze track that is filled to the brim with reverb. And what's really great about a lot of these tracks is that there are subtle things going on underneath this top layer of haziness. There's little bleeps and bloops that happen underneath these songs, like on this track, for example. Angel Maid is also an incredible example of that as well. And throughout most of these tracks, at least in the beginning, there is such a sweet vibe, like the almost sunshine pop-esque Duvet Day, where this song has probably one of the more traditional song structures on this album. And I love the lyrics on this record too. It's just so childish, it's so playful. And the vocal harmony is also really nice too, when he says, "My fairy horse with jelly horns and sugary teeth eats people's beans, made ovenly pre-melon sweets, and silly treats like rosary, let's have duvet days, stay away from everyone, every day's a school day, anyone." There's just this youthfulness to it that is undeniably smile-inducing. Every time I listen to this track, I am just singing along to this. I will point out that some of the vocals on this record are kind of buried underneath a lot of the instrumentation. That's one thing I would probably want a little more of next time around. Like the vocals could definitely be a little more pronounced on some of these tracks. I also have to point to the track Cheat Codes, which is probably one of my least favorite songs on this album, because in a sea of all of these very textured, layered, and dense songs, you have a track that's more or less like an acoustic ballad that feels tedious. And I do like the sentiment of this track, and I like the video game-esque mood that this track is written in, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that I find the song to be mild. And maybe the opening track could have had a little more punch to it. I do like how it kind of introduces us and kind of gives us a taste of what's to come. Many other nitpicks here and there, like the track Post Dick Circle Fuck. This track I feel like is a little too overbearing, like there's just too much going on this track in particular. The loud sunburnt guitars and just the instrumentation that is just wild. And maybe a few other nitpicks here and there, but still, I am so glad that I discovered this album because there's such a smile-inducing and blissful vibe to this album, but there's also a somewhat sadder tone to this record too, especially on the last couple of tracks, TYSON and Crash Tense Dummy, where the former sounds a lot more drearier and more mournful and sorrow-filled. If anything, I could probably describe this song as similar to a celebration of life memorial. You're more or less celebrating the life of a person. It's supposed to be a happy and joyous event in some respect. However, the last track on here is just straight up the funeral. It's not trying to be happy at all. And these somewhat simple guitar chords that are basically repeated throughout the entirety of this track really don't take away from just how well the song is built and made. I will end on the note that this is not only a very enjoyable record, it is a very creative album at that too, because it fuses different sounds into each other in a almost brute force way, but it makes it so organic and so fun. You just have a lot of these weird embellishments of neo-psych and shoegaze and noise pop, all worked into these tracks. You also get hints of indie-tronica in here as well. This album kind of reminds me of that Dan Deacon record earlier this year, but definitely a lot less professional. This definitely has a homemade appeal to it, which is fine. I like that appeal. There are samples used on this record. I believe there are. And it almost makes this album sound a little vaporwave-ish, not entirely. I wouldn't say it's like a main or even secondary genre term, but still there's like this hint of nostalgia on this record. It's blissful, it's smile-inducing, it's very, very nice. And for me personally, it is a strong recommendation and a strong A-. It is beautiful, it's fun to listen to, and it's well textured too. Check it out. However, I am curious to know, are you gonna listen to this album? And if you have, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. Remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective.